It is 6:30. I'll call this meeting of the St. Mary's City Council to order. Roll call, please.
Bub,
Here.
Doberman,
Here.
Chrisman,
Here.
Willoughby,
Here.
Fitzgerald,
Here.
Gillenhay,
Here.
Flagel.
Here. All right, please join Pastor Smith in a brief prayer, please.
Shall we pray? Well, God our Father, we give you thanks this evening for the privilege of gathering again after such a long delay. We thank you for the beautiful weather. We thank you for your mercy and grace. And we invite your presence and power into this group this evening, that you would give them the wisdom they need in such tumultuous times. Father, if there's a time we need you, it is now. And so we invite you and ask you to give them your strength and wisdom for every challenge they face and every challenge we as a city face. We pray your blessings on this city. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You all received a copy of the minutes of the last meeting. Are there any questions or comments from council? If not, may I have a motion to accept the minutes? Ms. Willoughby? Mr. Chrisman? Council vote to accept, please. All yeses, thank you. Next, we have petitions and communications. This is the opportunity for the audience to address council. Is there anyone here who wishes to address council? Yes, sir.
Yeah, what's the ordinance?
Please stand, give us your name and where you live, please.
829 West High Street, Michael Powell. I was wondering if, what kind of ordinance on dogs there are. That there's like 10 dogs and what you can do about getting the problem solved.
Are they running at large, sir? Or?
No, they're just a nuisance, they're barking all the time. You can't sit out in your front yard without the dog barking constantly and getting yelled at. So it's just a nuisance.
I know which house you're talking about, sir. I would just strongly encourage you that every time the dogs are barking, that you contact the police department. They'll go down there, they're familiar with the residents. That particular home has been issued citations numerous times, and that's the best way to handle it. If they're barking,
So police just come down and that's it.
they
That's it.
they observe the violation, they'll issue a citation, yes.
I've seen what Mike's talking about. It's a real problem. You can't carry on a conversation with anyone. I mean, we were talking about cutting a tree down because Mike's profession is tree cutting, and you can't even hear it. I would suggest one thing that we could do is take a look at our zoning ordinances and take a look at what it would take to have a kennel license to do something like that. I mean, if there isn't an inordinate amount of dogs. I
There's
can't.
like 12 dogs now, I believe.
Yeah, I don't know.
For one neighbor has 12 dogs.
One person has.
Wow.
That's
And then you got them in the house too, they did, so.
So yes, back to the original complaint, sir. If they're barking, I would call the police department. If they're running at large, I would call the police department. If they're showing signs of aggression, I would call them, contact the police department. I've talked with Chief Sutton about this and other officers, so they're very familiar with the residents. In fact, the day after you and the mayor met, Chief Sutton was down there to speak with the residents. And at that time, he said there was one dog outside that they couldn't get to bark at him. So you're just gonna have to call. You're not annoying them. That's what they're there for. So when the dogs are barking, you need to call the police department and they'll respond.
I'd be on the phone all day.
Well, yeah, and they'll go down and they'll issue citation after citation. Like I said, it is an ongoing issue at that residence. But when we checked the records, it doesn't look like there had been anyone called in several weeks.
No, I called.
Okay.
Hey, can I say something here? You know what? This been going on for 5 or 6, 7 years or better.
You know, you call them, call the police, they sit there, give them a blah, 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 whatever. You know, every time about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they bring all the other dogs out from in the house, outside, then it goes way out of control. You know, they got dogs stacked in that house. And it's trash. The trash. I thought we had a person there that you guys hired to get rid of that trash. You know, and I don't see nothing. They go there, give them a citation, whatever. They don't give a shit. That's all I'm saying.
Well, the day after you talked with the mayor, you know, like I said, the police chief went down there, and he took Dan Warman with him to code enforcement, and they both told the mayor, when they were down there on that day, and I don't remember what day that was, the one dog outside was not barking, and there were no active violations. Not to say that there weren't violations before, not to say that there's not violations after, but when they were down there the day after you two met, there were no violations. There has to be a violation for them to issue citations.
You know the stench you got? 'Cause I got the property right across, and it stinks. All the dog food stinks.
I'm sure it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You try to mow back there, it's like, man, it stinks.
Yeah.
Now they got chickens.
Yeah, let's get some
Red
chickens in
running
here.
around
Yeah.
everywhere.
All right. Yeah, you can. I can check to see because they should have a permit for the chickens. If they don't have a permit, then they will be told to get rid of them. And
They
the,
built another big old chicken pen.
yeah. So I'll look into that. They need to have a permit if they have chickens, and if they don't have a permit, they'll be told to get rid of them. But I am well familiar with the house, with the complaints, with the people. I've been dealing with it for probably 30 years. I'm aware of it, and we keep dealing with it. They get citations issued, they correct the problem for a while, and then it's right back. You just have to keep calling the police department when there's issues. You gotta call, you gotta tell them the dogs are barking at that residence, and they'll respond. They're required to respond, and they will respond. Yes, sir.
I do like the mayor's comment, to talk about that, maybe we put a limit or, 'cause I guess I didn't realize, that's not too far from my neighborhood, I guess I didn't realize that was going on, but, I wouldn't want 12 of them in my neighborhood backyard either, so I don't know if the law director can look at, I'm not, just something we could do potentially for either a kennel versus, even the number of dogs that are at one particular location. Then you're gonna have people turn around and say, I got 8 little tiny things here that don't make a bark at all, but I guess that's, Zach, maybe we could review that a little bit.
I thought years ago we couldn't have chickens. Remember that years ago?
We had forced guys in the past.
That was how many years? Yeah, it was.
Chickens, obviously, if they don't have a permit, we get rid of it.
Yeah.
Chickens don't bark that much.
They got rid of the roosters
for a while now. But
Yeah, they
they
had to
need-
get rid of the rooster.
Yeah, the thing with the permit for the chickens is that there's a lot of guidelines they gotta file, and as soon as there's a violation, the chickens are gone. And we have to register every year with the city.
We're running out and yelling in front of your truck all the time, be a violation.
They're supposed to be penned up, yes. So you just need to call us, because again, they're told, the first complaint we get, the permit is pulled, and they'll have to get rid of the chickens. It's easy to do, you just need to make us aware of the issues.
Well, a couple of years ago, I was coming back from a job and, there's a dog, I called in on him then. And they just come out and the dog died. It was and hanging outside the fence.
At the same residence?
Reported it, yeah.
Okay, I remember. Yeah. So I'm not saying there's not an issue, there is an issue at that residence, trust me, I'm aware of it. And in order to fix it, we just need people to continue to call when there's complaints, and they'll deal with it. Yes, sir.
What kind of penalty does the citation carry?
I think it's a minor misdemeanor, I think it's a $110 fine at the max. And I don't
That
think
would
it's
get
one of those
very expensive.
escalating ones. What's that?
You'd think that would get very expensive,
Well, it may already be like this, but what if you put an escalator clause in there? If they get 2 citations a year, the next one they get is gonna be $500. Is that possible?
It may be in there.
It may be in there, Todd, I'm just not for sure, it's been a while since I looked at it, but it potentially could be in there.
I think it is. I think it goes up to a 3rd-degree misdemeanor.
Is it Dave? Is it Dave?
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
Sir?
John?
Dave?
I couldn't see your whole face.
What's the address?
I don't know, I'm at 829. It's 2 houses
It may
down.
be, they used to live right beside Tim Everly on West High Street.
Okay.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think he was at 825, I think it's the first house,
And I'm at 829,
yeah.
yeah.
I can get you the information, Zach, I know
That's
exactly
fine.
what you're talking about.
Dave, can you give us your name and your full address for the record, please?
826 West Spring Street.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I have to apologize, I do not know your last name, sir.
What's that?
I do not know your last name.
Langridge.
Lennox, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to address council? Yes, sir.
Hi there. My name is Mike. Last name is Kern on Spring Street here in St. Mary's. Was wondering whether anybody could be either a facilitator or a point person to be involved in initiating with ODOT the possibility of moving the Route 66 raceway truckway from Spring Street where there's pedestrians and retail down a block to South Street where there's none, and there's the ability of city-owned ways to do curb cuts. And it could be very simple. Just wondered who would be a point person and who I could follow up on.
So you're wanting a street redesign?
No.
I think he's looking to change the truck route to bypass Spring Street.
It's very dangerous downtown right now, and as fast as they go, with left lanes doing this, and a truck cannot possibly, with the size of them, make that work. It's very dangerous downtown. They can't stop as quick as a horse, by chance, back in the day.
Well, Spring Street is the state route.
Right.
And that's
Correct,
why-
absolutely.
And that's why the trucks are on the state route.
Right, and I'm suggesting to have a truck route, a street down.
On
On South Street.
On South
Move
Street.
it out of retail and pedestrian
Yeah.
harm and danger. It's not, a lot of places have a truck route.
Yeah, I could touch base with our engineering department, but I think that would be a tall order to fill.
Why is that?
Well, because you're gonna be working with the state of Ohio for
No,
one.
no, that's just the process. That's the process of how you do it, is to work with the state, with ODOT.
Right, yeah, and
If
what
you
I'm,
have a lot of towns, it sometimes takes as much as a year and a half.
yeah, that doesn't surprise me,
Right, and that's fine.
yeah.
It's just very dangerous downtown, as fast as they go,
Yeah.
and as quick, unlike other towns, as quick as lights turn from green to red here. It's very dangerous.
Okay,
And you don't need a raceway on 66, a very large things that could hurt your retail and really hurt pedestrians, because they just can't stop. It's the wrong place for trucks when you can move it a street down, and you've got easy ways to do curb cuts. If I'm not mistaken, maybe the city owns that school and maybe the city owns the park. It'd be a no-brainer. And if it's just working with ODOT and finding out why you can't do it, it's really simply how you do it.
If that street can support trucks.
yeah. Yeah, all I
Who
can
would
say
be your
is,
point person on that?
I will talk to the engineering department about it,
And how
yeah.
do I follow up with you then? And how do
You
I-
can follow up with Mike, I mean, you have contact with Mike pretty regularly, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I'll do that next week then?
You can, I'm sure we won't have an answer for you, but you can
I mean,
certainly,
I'd follow up with Craig too, if you're saying he's the person that would start the ODOT issues.
yeah,
I mean, me as an individual can do that as well.
yeah, and feel free, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
but the
by all
point
means.
person with the city who's needed in that process.
Would be Craig Moeller.
Right?
Craig
But
Moeller.
I can follow up with you or Craig either way.
Yep,
Super, that sounds
Yeah.
great, thanks.
you bet.
Is there anything else? Yes, sir.
Dave Lunds, 1101 Neal Avenue. And I know the city has ordinances against big box trailers that people have, parking them on the street. But we have one on Linden. The owner plays games with the city. He'll let it sit there for the 72, 71 hours, then he'll pull it over, move it a foot forward. I moved it in the last 72 hours. And it's still sitting there and we drive around it. Or he'll unhitch it, but he'll back his van up to it and let it sit looking like it's hitched up, but it's not. I don't know if there's anything we can do to, I mean, and this hasn't been going on just this year. This is like a 3-year game he's played with the city. We call the police, they come down, you'll move it a foot. It's been moved. You know, I don't know if the city should just make it to where, you know, you can't park these truck type trailers on the street for days on end or what, but he finally did get rid of it this week. I don't know where he took it to store it, but you know, it's been going on so far all summer.
Yeah, as far as I recall, Dave, I think it's 48 hours they have to move it.
Whatever it is, he plays the games. He knows what it is.
And there's a lot of them that do, and again, it goes back to, you gotta contact the police department, they gotta come down, and you're right, they'll move it, but right now, the ordinance allows that to happen. So if they move it, and then they just bump it up a foot or bump it back a couple feet, they technically have moved that vehicle.
You know, and I guess my thought is too, you know, why do we need it there? Is it something that maybe it shouldn't even be permitted to be parked on the street for longer than a day or something if you're using it? You know, why is it sitting there 4, 5, 6, 8 weeks, moving it a foot here, a foot there? He uses it as a storage facility for his house. So,
These are like box trailers with wheels on them?
yeah, it's just one of these big, I don't know, 18-foot silver trailers, you know, 8-foot square, big fold-down back door, side door on it.
And these are in the street, not his driveway.
Correct.
Street.
Well, he bounces it, every once in a while he'll bounce it back and forwards to the driveway, but most of the time it's in the street.
Yeah, I can confirm what Dave's saying. It really creates a traffic hazard down there and makes it difficult for people to get through, because Linden is a narrow street.
And we got a lot of kids playing,
Yeah.
you know, and people are watching them, having to, you can't see around the trailer like you can a small car sitting there.
Guys playing a game.
Yep. Can we take a look at the ordinance, maybe tighten it up?
Mr. Feldman? I think that would fall under the streets and sidewalk. Could the Streets and Sidewalk Committee review that ordinance and make
Looking at
recommendations?
a meeting next week.
I can get something looked at.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can bring that in this week.
I do have a second thing.
Okay.
My other comment, I don't know if you guys have seen those big white collection boxes, like the one out at Kroger's, and there's one out at Penny's. I took a picture of the one at Kroger's the other day.
I seen it too, Dave. You don't have to show me.
Nobody's
what it
seen the
looks like.
picture. I took a picture of the collection box at Kroger's the other day. If this was at my house, I'd have a citation in a minute. You know, the city has an ordinance against the collection of garbage and trash on your property. I know because I worked at the fire department for years and I enforced it. You know, but yet Penny's, the one out in front of the old Penny's store, was piled up the other night. This one's piled up out of Kroger's. So, you know, I don't know if, especially like the one, well, either one of them's off the highway. You know, people stopping in our town, do we want them seeing that when they pull into the store? It's just not, you know, we're trying to make our town look nice and then we got little trash holes here and there.
I agree, Dave, that it looks terrible, but I think someone argued that it's not trash. Trust me, I know that some people think they're donating a good item, and it is trash. I get that.
Yeah.
But if you were to sift through there, my guess is there would be some items that could be.
Oh, I'm sure
repurposed.
there's good,
So,
but
just to show up and issue a citation for trash would probably not go over well. But I agree, it looks terrible, and I'll reach out to Kroger's and the other folks to see if they can't maybe do the collections and get it policed up a little better, because it is unsightly.
Does anyone know if they stopped collecting because of COVID? Because
wondering if
hasn't
that's
been a
what's
problem
going on.
before this?
oh yeah, and it's a problem in all the towns.
Okay.
I'm over to Salina and that, they've got them, they're piled up the same way.
I know that I've seen stuff there, but it seems like there's been a lot more the last couple months than in the past. But I don't know who's, obviously the business that owns the parking lot's responsible for it. And
Yeah, and I don't have any issue with talking to them and say that we're concerned with how it appears, because it does look very,
And I
very
know-
bad. But I guess my point is that they would argue that it's not trash, and
And
that
I-
they're recycling or repurposing it.
And I do believe some cities have passed ordinances prohibiting those.
Yeah.
If you've got stuff to donate it to your local Agape, don't just take it out here and dump it in the middle of the parking lot.
Right, yeah. So give me a chance to make contact with these folks and see if we can't resolve it that way before we go through and try to do anything legislatively. My guess is maybe the managers aren't aware of it, maybe COVID had something to do with it, I don't know, but I'll reach out to them and see if
Maybe
we
it's
can't resolve
as
it.
simple as posting it, Greg, as, no material outside the bin.
And don't go in the bin and don't go.
That'd be the first start there. Whether they actually listen to it.
I believe that sign is on there. I've seen it over Salina, like a sign up like that, and people still stack it outside.
Yeah, well, their pickup schedule, they've been upset with this COVID, not so much that their pickups schedule has been, but hasn't been ramped up because people are stuck at home. I don't know about you, but I've had a heck of a lot of honeydews since this thing hit, so.
Yeah. I mean, I know, I understand that, it's just
Okay.
something I seen and thought, well, maybe we can do something.
It's a good point, Dave.
Yeah, good point, good point. Are there anyone else wishing to address council? Okay, moving on, we have reports of city officials. We have the mayor's report.
Nothing to add to that report, Mr. Harris.
Is there any questions or comments from council? If not, then we have the tax commissioner's report.
Mr. Harris, I have nothing to add to the tax commissioner's report.
Is there any questions or comments from council? Next, we have the Director of Public Service and Safety report.
Likewise, Mr. Harris, I have nothing to add, but I'll be glad to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Any questions or comments from council? Mr. Yeoman.
Yes, sir.
Greg, on Stony Brook Drive, I've had several people tell me that it sounds like we're getting a situation similar to what we deal with on Kishler sometimes. And that is people speeding through there.
Mm.
And I think a good step in the right direction, maybe the electronic speed limit sign would be something that slow these people down.
Okay,
Because there's lots of young families with young children.
okay,
And they, even though that curves a little bit there at Glenbrook and Hampton,
yeah,
they still 30, 40 miles an hour, no problem.
Okay.
On the way back to the ninth edition or around Woodbridge.
okay.
So,
All right, yeah, we have two of the signs. I know we just relocated one of them, so I'll see about the other one, see if we can't get it out there.
yeah, that
Is there
would
one
be-
direction, I assume it's when they're coming off of 116?
Yes,
You're right.
Okay.
westbound. Maybe start there and perhaps some signage down the road, and we'll see how good luck we have with taking this thing. So, but I've seen it myself on walks and stuff. It's the deal, it's people.
Side note, Mr. Fox, over the Shelby County Sheriff had a slick little idea for their speed trailer.
Mhm.
So you go and it tells you what your speed is. If you're over, it flashes. If you're 5 miles and over, they put a light bar on that.
Mm.
And that, those flashing blues really get your attention.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to be diligent about moving, it, otherwise people do get used to seeing it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the same effect, but it is good for surveys and the speed studies and things like that, so it does record all that. But yeah, but Dan, I'll look into that and see how soon we can get the other one moved.
Yeah, are you talking more of like a permanent one, like out on out on Indiana Avenue, or just
No,
with the trailers?
let's start with the temporary
All right.
trailer, but people did have some extreme ideas in my view. It was suggested to have a three-way stop there at, where Hampton comes out.
Yeah.
And where Glenbrook comes out from the church.
Yeah.
And I thought, I don't think that's gonna fly.
Yeah, stop signs are never recommended for
Right.
speed control.
And speed bumps were, and that's not gonna fly, so
Those
let's
are too
start with
dangerous.
the trailer and see how far we get.
And just the stepped up enforcement, they can start that
Yeah.
tomorrow, or
Yeah.
tonight if I call.
Now, the officers would get some business, I'm sure.
Yeah, so we'll step up enforcement, we'll get the speed sign out there, and hopefully that takes care of it. What's unfortunate in my experience is most people that are speeding live down there, so they're speeding down their own roads.
They do live down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Is there any other, yes?
I did have a question on the tax department a little bit. I know the revenues are down on the income tax. Do we anticipate a little bit of leap on that since it was a late filing, a July 15th filing?
We do.
Just something
Yes.
maybe coming back?
Yes, we do. Everyone knows because of the pandemic, the tax filing deadline was moved to July 15th, so we do anticipate, fingers crossed, an uptick in income tax revenue.
Any other questions or comments from council? Okay, moving on then, we have no reports from committees of city council. Under readings of ordinances and resolution, under third reading, we have ordinance 2020-10, an emergency ordinance vacating portion of a drainage easement located in the Cross Point subdivision in the city of St. Mary's. Any questions or comments from council? This being the third reading, may I have a motion to pass, please? Mr. Coverman, Mr. Buff? Council vote to pass, please. All yeses, thank you. Next, under second readings, we have ordinance 2020-14, an ordinance approving the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as parts of the various component codes of the codified ordinances of the city of St. Mary's. Any questions or comments from council? We're good for three readings, Mr. Fox?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, that being the case, this will be back for its third and final reading at the next meeting. Under new legislation, I have ordinance 2020-16. May I have a motion to read, please? Mr. Ulenek, Mr. Flegel. Council vote to read, please. All yeses. Ordinance 2020-16, an ordinance amending section 351.03A of the codified ordinances. Mr. Foxover.
Mr. Chair, this ordinance basically addresses an issue that we've talked about through committees and through council meetings. It involves parking in front yards. You'll see highlighted as number 17. That is the only change to this ordinance that prohibits parking front, side, or rear yards or an unimproved surface. So this is really just following the guidelines that were given to us through the committees that they simply don't want people parked in their front yards. So this is the only change to this particular section.
Okay. Any questions or comments from council?
So does this address like campers and things in your yard then?
There's already legislation for that concerning when they can be parked and where they can be parked. This is
for
motor vehicles.
The campers are already regulated through zoning code. They can't be in the front or side yards. They're supposed to be in the rear yards. That's done by a complaint, on a complaint basis, though.
And if they're in driveways, they're not supposed to stick into the sidewalk or the roadway. Folks should be able to walk on the sidewalk without having to walk around the camper.
I think this particular issue where people parking their vehicles in their front yards in the grass or in the side yards in the grass, this specifies that it can't be on an unimproved surface in the front, side, or rear yards. Includes vehicles and motorcycles.
Is that gonna be a coding officer or is that gonna be a complaint?
This is a criminal offense, so this is, police department can enforce this.
It's complaint driven.
But complaint, you have to have a complaint first.
The complaint driven is just the procedural way we handle things. Usually they're complaint driven. I don't know if we're gonna step up a little enforcement at first when this is passed or not.
They'll make them aware of the change in the law. They won't show up tomorrow or whatever this passes in three readings. That, you know, they'll make people aware that you no longer can do this. Again, the whole goal for us at the police department is compliance. We want compliance. It's not about issuing citations. So once this passes after its third reading and takes effect, and the officers observe a violation, they'll simply make contact with the property owner and tell them, you no longer can park in the grass, and you know, here's the ordinance change. But if they continue to violate it, then certainly they can issue a citation. It's no different than an unlicensed disabled vehicle on the property. You're not allowed to have an unlicensed disabled vehicle on your property, and this would fall under the same thing. The officers would take care of it.
Any other questions or comments from council?
Is a stone driveway or a asphalt, is that considered improved or unimproved?
Stone is considered improved.
Yes.
We have too many, that's a whole separate issue if we ever want to address that. We have a lot of stone driveways in town though, so I don't see any way to delineate that at this point.
I don't want to go there. Any other questions or comments from council? Okay, this will be back for its second reading at the next meeting. Next, we have ordinance 2020-17. May I have a motion to read, please? Mr. Fitzgerald. Mr. Crispin. Council vote to read, please. All yeses. Ordinance 2020-17, an ordinance to enact section 521.16 of the codified ordinances of the City of St. Mary's, regulation portable storage containers. Mr. Foxell.
Ms. Harris, again, this comes out of committees and various council discussions that were had concerning portable storage units being left as permanent storage facilities. The committees and council agreed that they did not want that. The law director drafted this. This is actually a new section that pertains to portable storage containers. You could use them, but it's on a temporary basis. They're not designed, for instance, if you had a flood in your home and you moved everything out while you had some cleanup done, that's perfectly acceptable. These facilities are just not designed for permanent use, and this ordinance will allow us to address that issue.
Any questions or comments from council?
How's that going to impact the question we had regarding the, out of Kroger's and the other one with the, are they automatically a violation of this ordinance?
Well, go ahead.
No, you're the attorney.
I said, I don't think we would consider those to be portable storage containers personally, but, because there seem to be collections facilities that are emptied and taken out, but,
Because I was just looking at it the other way, I'm not sure there's enough language in here to actually remove it from that point. So,
I think there's always discretion with enforcement too on that.
and I agree with you, that's, in my opinion, that's what it should be. It should be based on complaint purpose.
Any other questions or comments from council? This will be back for its second reading at the next meeting. Next, we have ordinance 2020-18. May I have a motion to read, please? Ms. Willoughby, Mr. Culverman, council vote to read, please. All yeses. Ordinance 2020-18, an ordinance authorizing declarations of official intent under the U.S. Treasury regulations with respect to reimbursements from note and bond proceeds of temporary advances made for payments prior to issuance and related matters and declaring an emergency. Mr. Foxhover.
This is a little history, Mr. Harris. Back at the end of February of this year, February 28th, several of us traveled down to Columbus to meet with Allison Binkley. Allison, you remember, was here in April of 16. We went through a similar process for the electric notes that we purchased for the upgrades. She's relatively new to the process, but her firm, Squire Patton Boggs, that we've been involved with for decades. They're bond counsel. She's a finance attorney. We went down at the end of February to talk about funding some future projects. We talked about the Spring Street reconstruction project, which we know is a 6-year, potentially 6 to 7, or 6-phase, 6 to 7 year project, which could cost between $15 and $16 million. Through this process, we do obviously a plan to apply for grants and help offset those costs. Another one was the new municipal building that we talked about. We were looking at these long-term, large projects that we had to deal with. We talked about the bathhouse at the pool, potentially using this process for that, as well as the amphitheater we talked about for the Skip Bachman Sports Complex. We had that meeting. It was a good meeting. The ball got started. Well, the pandemic hit in March. The world stopped turning and everything came to a screeching halt. Well, as Ohio started to open back up, Allison reached out to us a few weeks ago and said, look, where are you at in the process? We're still moving forward. Obviously, we're keeping a close eye on the finances and how we do these things. They're long-term projects. Spring Street is needed. The municipal building is needed. And I say all that to say this, is that this ordinance simply will give our auditor, Mr. Reason, the authority to sign declarations of official intent. So what that means is say for instance, we were gonna borrow money to complete the restroom facility, that comes in about $824,000. If we were gonna do that, he could sign that official intent. That way, if we spent money prior to the issuance of those notes or bonds, we could reimburse ourselves for those costs. Mr. Farrell, please feel free to jump in if I misspeak here. We have no financial obligation with this ordinance. This is simply giving our auditor the authority to sign these. You still have the authority for the projects because you have to approve the budget. And then even through the budget process, once it's done, you have to approve the ordinance that allows the issuance of notes and bonds. So obviously, council is still actively involved in this process. This simply gives us the ability through the IRS Internal Revenue Code of 1986 for reimbursement. With that said, we would not try to seek any type of reimbursement on the bathroom facility. That work has been done. It's outside the look-back period of 60 days. So that's done. So this is something that we started in February, and again, it got put on hold through the pandemic, and we're simply trying to move forward again. And again, it's long-term visions for very expensive projects that we've been working on for a lot of years. So, Ms. Farrell, go ahead.
No, I think that sums it up good. This is not in any kind of, this is not making us any way responsible for any bonds at this point. It just starts the process to allow us to do it in the future, at which point we'd have to come back to council and ask for your authorization at that point. So this is merely just like the first step in the procedural process, but it's an important step because if we don't have this passed, then we can't reimburse for any of the preliminary expenses that we may incur.
The declaration of official intent is a simple one-page document that Mr. Reason would sign. It lists the amount not to exceed, and it lists the project. So if we decide to move forward with this bathroom facility or at the bathhouse, he would sign that form, and we would secure our position so that if we started to spend money on that project before we were able to issue notes and bonds, we could go back and reimburse ourselves if we choose to. We don't have to. It just gives us a choice. It protects our position.
The other important part is that it allows us to contact the bond council to lock in the rates. This is historically low rates right now. So whether we decide to proceed or not, this just starts the process to allow us to lock in at the existing rates, or allows Doug to.
So with that said, we would like it to be passed under suspension of rules if you're comfortable with it, just in case we decide to move forward. The mayor, the auditor, and I, and Zach, and others have conversations about this. The bathhouse is a project that we talked about. Again, we understand the finances are tight, but we're trying to not miss an opportunity. Obviously, our pool is closed because of the pandemic. The document is ready to go to bid, and we may send it out to bid just to see what those numbers look like. We're hopeful that because contractors are hungry and they would have the opportunity to start immediately, that we can get a better price. If the price comes back and it's not doable, or Mr. Reason says the funds aren't available to do this, then we simply don't do it.
Are there any questions or comments from council? That being the case, we have a request to suspend the rules. What is council's wishes? Mr. Yolnik.
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules for 2020-18.
Motion by Mr. Yolnik to suspend the rules, second by Mr. Crispin. Council vote to suspend the rules, please. All yeses. That being the case, may I have a motion to pass, please? Mr. Kogerman, Mr. Buck, council vote to pass, please. All yeses. Thank you. Next, we have Resolution 2020-11. May I have a motion to read, please? Mr. Yolnik, Mr. Flegel, council vote to read, please. All yeses. Resolution 2020-11, an emergency resolution for the repair, replacement, or construction of curb and gutters, sidewalks, combination sidewalks and curbs, asphalt pavement, and drive approaches. Mr. Foxell.
Mr. Harris, this is an annual resolution concerning the street program. This is phase 1 of 6 phases for the Spring Street reconstruction program. This particular section we're starting with first is East Spring Street at the railroad tracks going east to Knoxville Avenue. Everything will go. The street lights, the sidewalks, the base, the asphalt, everything will be replaced, the drive approaches. It has a price tag of $750,000. We received a grant from the OPWC, about 50% of it, $375,000. Of the balance, $150,000 of that will be water sewer lines that we'll put in after the project. The property owner's share is right around $30,000, and then the balance of $195,000 will be paid out of voted tax. In this particular section of the street, you'll notice more often than not, our street lights are in the tree lawn. But down in this section of town, they're actually behind the sidewalks. So when the street lights come down and throughout the project, these sidewalks will be moved back both on the south side and the north side about 2.5 feet. We have the right of way to do that. Therefore, the tree lawn will be bigger and the new street lights will be put in that area. So the sidewalks will be pushed back 2.5 feet. We hope to bid this by the end of July, if not sooner. The contractor will be told that they cannot start the project if they cannot complete the project this year. We simply do not want that street under construction during the hard months of the winter. So if they can start it and they can finish it this year, we'll award the contract. But if they can't guarantee us, we won't do it. We'll make them wait till next year. Again, this is all part of the process of the Spring Street reconstruction. We would like to move forward, like I said, and bid it by the end of the month. So we would request to be passed under suspension of the rules.
Okay. Are there any questions, comments, Mr. Flegel?
Greg, does the price also include new streetlights then?
Yes.
Okay.
Everything.
Are we going with a higher volume or higher velocity lights or something?
The LEDs?
The LEDs?
Yeah.
Okay.
They'll be similar to what you see, North Spruce, South Main. As we replace them, the head is actually very thin, so you can definitely tell if they're LEDs. But yeah, they'll be replaced with a similar light. Now, once we get downtown, those lights are going to look different, and that's something, the downtown area will be phase 6. It'll be the very last part of it in 2023, 2024. Those traffic lights, or street lights, I'm sorry, will look different. Okay.
Any other questions or comments from council? If not, then we have a request to suspend the rules. What is council's wishes? Mr. Coberman.
Motion 2011 should be suspended.
Motion to suspend by Mr. Coberman, second by Mr. Buck. Council vote to suspend, please. All yeses. That being the case, may I have a motion to pass then, please? Ms. Willoughby, Mr. Crispin, council vote to pass, please. All yeses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the list, we have scheduling miscellaneous business and closing. I have a request for a Parks and Playground Committee meeting on next Monday at 5:15. Mr. Buck, you good with that? Good. Okay. And then we have a request for Streets and Sidewalk Committee meeting, same day at 5:30. Mr. Coleman, you good with that?
Yes.
We're all good? Is there anything else come before council? Mr. Buck? Motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn by Mr. Buck, second by Mr. Yelenick. Council vote to adjourn, please. All yeses. Thank you.